Grab your logistics officers, wargamers, because today the nations of Bellamunda, the world of war, are living up to the namesake and they are marching off to war. Who is doing what to whom? I don't know yet. Before we get to that, I wanted to show you that I cleaned up the maps of the two nations that we generated in the last video. I've also given them names. We'll get to that in a minute. I want to go over the major landforms and how those are likely to impact the campaign that we're about to wage. The country here on the left or to the west. Our card draw was for grasslands up here, but we had mountains, we had hills, and we had hills. Now, in our case, the hills become mountains. Those are objects that block the movement of armies. So I just connected up that line of hills with this line of hills. Said, hey, that grasslands, I guess that's a giant pass through the mountain chain. And, of course, our river kind of cuts through the mountains as well. That river is what cut the pass, and so we have a fairly large city there. As for the city sizes, our capital wound up right here. The largest city is an A-class city. We've got a couple of larger cities. Now, we don't have any B-class cities, but we do have Cs here, here, and here. So on this nation, we have a central hub for our road network, and it's a village for some reason. I guess it was a larger city that has fallen on hard times. The light woods became just a cluster of smaller woods, and then the heavy woods became large and dank woods like so. We have a swamp down here, and here we have an actual river network. This river drains part of this valley, and we have our largest city outside of the capitals up here. We've got a C-class city here, and then we've got, I think we have a couple more. One here on the river crossing and one down here. While I set up where the initial forces arrive on the map, or the spawn point for regiments, if you will, I went ahead and I kind of tweaked the road network a little bit. I gave them a bunch of names, so since this nation is going to be wearing the black uniforms when we go to the miniature battle, this army is going to be wearing the white uniforms. To help us remember that, I gave these towns in this nation dark-sounding names. Tenebra is Latin for shadow, I think, and Alba is Latin for, I think it's Alba is Latin for white. So you've got the black nation and the white nation here. And as you can see, I actually added to the road network a little bit here. Big thing is the road network, we've got a small point with kind of a ring road around, and here is kind of the central point here. And unlike last time, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 roads that lead across the frontier. So we've got more possibilities already. We've got more settlements. They tend to be a little bit smaller, but we have a much more balanced network of forces here. And that's what we're going to go over in today's video. Who starts where? How do they join up? How many armies are going to be generated by each of these two kingdoms? Who's going to be the aggressor? And so on and so forth. So before we get to who the aggressor is and who crosses the frontier first, I wanted to show you what I've got as far as the total muster for each of these two nations. The nation of Albi, and it says Alba because I hadn't changed it there. That's actually Albi. They have a total of 56 regiments. And what I did, now, Mr. Silvestri just gives you a list of how many regiments are available from each area, from each city. And he lists Class A as 2 to 6 regiments. Well, I said 2 to 5. Well, I'm just going to make it 6. Class B will generate 5 regiments, C 4, 3, 2, and there you go. So there's our 5 classes of cities. When you run the numbers, what you'll find is that you get 56 regiments on this side and 50 regiments on this side. So we don't have any of those 2-to-1 advantages. At least I don't think so. We still need to figure out when the call for war comes, what their strategies are going to be and what that means for where they're going to rally their forces. A couple of things suggest themselves automatically. Albi has 3 large cities here capable of supporting an army. So my guess is that they're going to be mustering in these 3 cities, probably 2 of those. On this side, Tenebra is a lot more likely to muster here in their capital. They've got to protect their capital. They may muster a defensive force here and then an offensive force here to stick it to Albanopolis. We don't know yet. We're just kind of spitballing and brainstorming for what we think is going to happen. these 56 regiments, the question then becomes, how do we break it down? Well, we've basically got 6 different kinds of forces that we need to track. We've got artillery, light and heavy cavalry, regular foot, light and heavy foot. And the rule that I implemented here is that the capitals each produce 2 heavy foot, 2 regular foot, and 2 heavy cavalry. The B-class city generated 2 foot, 2 heavy foot, 1 heavy cavalry. And the C-class cities each generate 2 guns. These are our foundries. So these are where guns will respawn. 1 heavy foot, 1 light foot. The D-class will spawn mostly now. They spawn 1 foot, well, 2 foot and 1 light cavalry. So hey, look, the kind of rural areas are more likely to have horses. So the E-class generate 1 foot and 1 light cavalry. Then, because I wanted a couple of light foot thrown in, I just picked a couple of settlements here, kind of near the woods, and said, oh, I guess those woodsmen are going to be our light foot, our skirmishers in the parlance. So when you run all that, what you find is you've got 8 guns, 10 light horse, 4 heavy horse, 25 line infantry, 7 heavy infantry, and 2, these are your grenadiers, and 2 light infantry on this side. And over here you've got 2 less cannons, but you have a lot more light horse. You've only got 2 heavy horse over here. 17 line infantry, 9 heavy foot, and 3 light foot. So we've got fewer of the line infantry, but more specialized forces. A little more light foot on that side. So they're going to be a little more flexible, I think, a little quicker moving than these guys, but they've got the numerical advantage, a slight numerical advantage. The next thing I want to know is when these festivities start. We're going to use a deck of cards for that. Recall that the First Elopation War started in October 1 and ran through about mid-November. This time around, we're going to figure out what time the exercise begins. Now, not necessarily the shooting. When do they call out the muster? And what I'm going to do is use a deck of cards. The card will tell me what month it is. Ace will be January, up through Queen, which will be December. If it's a king that is drawn, we're just going to redraw. The suit would tell us what week. If it's spades, it'll be the first week of the month. If it's, we go in reverse alphabetical order. Spades, hearts, diamonds, clubs will be week 1, 2, 3, and 4. January, diamonds, spades, hearts, diamonds. So it's going to be the 3rd week of January. All right. 3rd week of January, we'll call it January 21, 1802, Anno Domini. Oh, by the way, I also made a couple of personalities to lead these nations. We've got the black uniforms. It's going to be King Dirk Gloomover, and the white uniform is going to be Queen Blanche d'Ivory. And it looks like we're starting on January 21. So about 8 weeks afterwards, I would say. Maybe they signed a Christmas truce for the First Elopation War. The next thing we have to determine is which of these nations will be the attacker and which will be the defender. We're going to draw a card, and I'll shuffle them up so you know I'm being honest here. And if we draw a black card, then Tenebra will be the aggressor. If we draw a red card, Albi will be the aggressor. So they are the aggressor. The next thing we need to determine is how long it takes Tenebra to react to the uncalled for and illegal war of aggression by the White Queen. And with a result of 2, the defender begins to mobilize at the same time as the attacker. So they kind of knew what was coming, which is great because it's going to mean that it's a bit of a race to get as many forces as far forward as possible. That might, now, you know, we'd have to sit down and run some numbers and really look at this in detail to figure out what that means. But before we do, remember that before the mobilization begins, we have to come up with some strategies. How can you mobilize to anywhere if you don't know where your troops are marching? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 towns along the border here, and 1, 2, 3, 4 here. The mobilization process requires a lot of boring mathematics and logistics tracking. I'm not going to do that to you guys. I pulled out all the aces, 2s, and 3s so we can develop some strategies for these two nations. We don't know what the White Queen has in mind. Why is she invading? What does she want? What is her ultimate goal? We're going to break up the forces into thirds. We're going to send 2/3 of the army as an offensive force and hold 1/3 of it back as a defensive force. We've got a long frontier here. And I'm going to flip over a card, and on an ace, she is going to take a northern front. She's going to try to rally troops up here. She's going to try to attack Umbrastra. That's an ace. On a 2, she's going to rally and try to take Grand Point. And on a 3, she's actually going to rally her troops at Albanopolis. And she's going to launch a seaborne invasion somewhere between these two cities with the hopes and intentions of taking one of these ports. Ultimately, she wants to control the port side. Notice that I've got cliffs over here and cliffs over here. So all of the landings have to be between here, between where my hands are. And fundamentally, this is all marshlands down here. So it really is between Mudbourne and Albanopolis is what we're talking about. That's important because their counter strategy is going to be similar. But let's go over hers first, right? On an ace, we're going to drive from Bostra. On deuce, we're going to go for Grand Point. And on a 3, we're going to go for the seaborne route. So on a 2, she's headed for Grand Point, and that means we're going to do all of our rallying. This is the largest nearest city, so she is going to mobilize here. 2/3 of her forces here, 1/3 up there, because that allows for, well, we'll have to see what happens next. On the other hand, the question here is, how do they respond to invasion? And I think the ace is obvious. Protect the capital. You're going to put your largest army here. On a deuce, you're going to bring everybody to Blackbridge to allow yourself some, well, fundamentally, we'll put 1/3 of the troops up here regardless. On a deuce, on an ace, we're going to put most of our troops here. On a deuce, we're going to put most of our troops here. And on a 3, we're going to put most of our troops down on the southern coast. That's all we know. Are we going to put the largest concentration here, here, or down here? Probably here. So there we have an ace. So same thing. Oh, this is great. We are going to have 2 armies going head to head. So they're rallying here. They are, wait a minute. No, right. So we got 2. They're going to be pretty close. But our defensive forces are going to be on the opposite sides. We'll put a defensive force. Well, no, we're going to use the scammer to decide that. So our offense is up here, and our offense is here. The defensive force is going to go towards number 3. So the defensive force is going to come down to the capital with an eye towards exploiting whatever happens down here. And again down here, so we may see some naval action, it looks like, with our defensive forces in the south and our offensive forces up here. Now we have ourselves a scenario. I'm going to have to make some notes. Let me write some of this down, and we'll be back in a minute. The next thing we need to talk about is weather. They're marching to war in January. That's going to complicate matters. Once again, we'll turn to Bill Sylvester's map of the weather. I should say it's a weather chart. And he says, hey, roll 2d6. Well, again, I'm caught without my dice. Bit of an embarrassment for a wargamer, but we'll make do. I got a deck of cards here. And this deck of cards has no jokers, it has no kings, and it has no aces. I've pulled all of those out. I've also pulled out a couple of 2s, a couple of queens, and a single jack and a 3. And I did that because that means we're going to have a less chance of drawing a queen or a deuce, and we're going to have less chance of drawing a 3 or an 11. So it kind of mitigates the fact that we're not having that nice bell curve for 2d6, but not so much because I want weather. I want weather to affect what's going on here. When we get to February, so I'm just going to generate the first 10 days. When we get to February, I'll go ahead and kick back. I think it's just going to be a really harsh January for these guys, and we're just going to go right in order. 2, 7, 4, 7, 5. The suits don't matter. There's our 10 cards. So as expected, we've got fog on the first day. We've got clear skies on the 22nd. We've got light rain on the 23rd. Clear skies. Heavy rain on the 25th. 3 is going to be light rain. The 8 and the 7 are clear skies, and then the 6 is also a clear skies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, looks like we need one more. Clear skies. No, 5 is going to be heavy rain. So we've got 3 days of clear skies. We've got heavy rain, and then we need one more for the end of the month. And a deuce is going to be more fog. So we had... No, it's not. Wait. Yeah, 10s... Any 10s, jacks, and queens would have been snow. So nobody got snowed in. As I said, we are in the south. It's a slightly more temperate. So for our first 10 or 11 days of marching boys around, it's going to be pretty wet. This area in particular is going to slow people down. As you recall from our last run through of this exercise on... the other thing we need to think about here is who's got the better road network. What I did for the road networks, mind you, so the dashed lines are unimproved roads. They get muddy. It's not great. The solid lines are improved roads. You can move faster along those. And what I did is I said any road that's connected to a class A, B, or C city is going to be improved. A, B, or C. Looks like I missed one. This D to D should probably be unimproved, but we'll let it go. Whatever. It's probably a trade route. Not going to worry too much about that. But as a result of that, what you see is that you've got a really nice road network that connects the large settlements, and then it's unimproved wherever you're just connecting D's and E's. And again, you can consider the rivers to be a very good road network. Once again, what we'll do is we'll set up some rates where you move. So a guy marches on a good road 20 miles a day, and on a river, we'll go ahead and give him something like 25 miles a day going downriver and 10 miles a day going upriver. We can include some chances of flooding that negates that. We can also decide that traveling by river doesn't exhaust the troops. We learned last time that these guys, in the last exercise of this, I had them just marching cross-country for days and days and days and days and days. When I went back and did my research, I don't recall off the top of my head if the Solo Wargaming Guide talks about this, but the old guard, guys like Featherstone, they said, hey, guys can march for 3 days and then they need to rest. So don't spend them marching for a full week at a time. If they're marching at full speed, every 4th day should be a rest day. I actually gave them, I revised, I said, look, they're going to march at normal speed for 6 days a week, and we took Sundays off. And that moved them around a little bit quicker. But we're now into the shuffling pieces around. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some brain power and some just tedious number crunching to figure out who winds up where. All I know for sure is what we talked about, and that's that we're going to have large armies converging on Umbrastra and Mudbourne here, with this guy held as a reactionary force. We're going to have a force mustering at Fairhold on this side and at Albanopolis. Hey, the other question is, how long does it take to unload ships? How long does it take to load ships? Well, I don't know. We'll figure that out in the next video. So tune in next time for the next solo Wargaming campaign, Campaigning Alone, and we'll answer all of those questions, and we'll raise a whole bunch more. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you have any complaints, there's a complaint department right below here. It's called the comment section. I'm a big boy. I can take it. And unfortunately, I'm producing these things about a month in advance. So while I can't incorporate your comments in the next video, which I'll be recording in the next day or two, I am always interested in reading them, because while I couldn't incorporate the first campaign comments in that campaign, I'm sure as heck incorporating them now, because without a doubt, you guys collectively are a lot smarter than I am, as it should be. And I really do appreciate the help that you guys are providing. Just, be cool, man. Until next time, I'm praying for you.